eye out on this book because I really hope. Hi fam and welcome to a new video. I am sitting in bed today because it is raining, like pouring outside, and I just wanted to be like nice and comfy and in bed, you know, and like with my coffee and like, but I also want to talk about books, so that's what I'm going to do. So I am going to be wrapping up the 16 books that I read in June. I know, it's ridiculous. But also talk to you about some of the books that I plan to read in July. And yeah, I know, you're just like, wait, what? 2 videos in one? And yeah, that's because I feel like TBR videos for me sometimes are a bit like redundant and like just sort of maybe don't make sense anymore, because like I have a lot of ideas, like especially like for example this last month I had like a lot of secret videos which I didn't really want to talk about, like the books that I was going to read in them, for example reading Tom Hiddleston's favorite books and stuff like that. So I don't know, I'm just gonna like combine them, because even in the next month I do have a few like secret videos or TBR videos or whatever where I plan to read some books for a particular thing, and like I don't want to tell you right now, I want it to be a surprise, but I will talk about a few books that I plan to read and that I will tell you about. Does that make sense to you? Let me know what your thoughts are on this whole thing, and without any further ado, let us get into the books that we're reading. But before that, I should just generally give you some stats for my reading last month, but stats bitch is missing because essentially I just couldn't find the glasses that I film with when I am stats bitch. So I am going to take over and tell you about some of the books, some of the stats for the month of June. So I read 16 books, as I said, which is ridiculous, but you will see. The number of pages that I read was 4,512 pages, which is quite good. I think it was the highest amount that I read in the year so far in terms of like months. I read from 9 genres because I am being amazing and reading from all over as usual. 5 were fantasy, which you'll see why that was so. 3 graphic novels, 2 romance, 1 magical realism, 1 horror, I know, who am I, 1 historical fiction, 1 dystopia, 1 thriller, and 1 poetry sort of thingy. You'll see what I mean. So that was quite a lot. In terms of countries read, however, I did terribly because I read from 4 countries, out of which 10 books were from the US. And this is me, the person who said that I was going to read less books from the US. So clearly, yeah. Then 3 books were from the UK, 2 from Australia, and 1 from Canada, Portugal sort of thingy. That is Canadian, Portugal thingy. And you know what I mean. Anyway, in terms of genders of the authors, this was also, I think, the first month that was very male heavy, where I read 75% male authors, 12.5% were female, and 12.5% were genderqueer. So that's cool. And in terms of the ratings, I had 0 5 stars, but I had 7 4.5 stars, which is like crazy. I had 3 4 stars, 3 3.5 stars, 1 3 star, 1 1.5 star, and 1 1 star. And I don't give off like 1 1.5 2 stars like too often. One, because I try to read like nice books, but 2, like I don't know, I'm nicer sort of like that, but I hated some of these books that I read. So let's just get into the books per se, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you through like the books that I read as per the order that I read them in, because I want you to kind of see the chaos in my brain while I like read for certain videos, etc. So the first video that I wanted to work on was reading Tom Hiddleston's favorite books, and I was really excited about it, but the first book that I read put me in a ginormous slump and just in such a shit mood, and that was The Night Manager by John le Carre. This book is a thriller written in like the early 1990s, where we are following this guy called Jonathan Pine, who was like from the army in UK, and then he becomes like part of a hotel, and he's a night manager there, and then he's approached by the MI6 and like some of the secret service thingies of the UK to essentially infiltrate this one arms dealer guy who they don't really have enough information on, but they want him to infiltrate it because he's interacted with him in the past and all of that sort of stuff, and they think that he'll be good for it. And yeah, that's essentially what happens. He then like gets into it and all of that sort of stuff. But this was like a 600-ish page book, and it was so slow. There were parts of it that I was just so annoyed with, including just the way that like he frames women, and the way that he talks about women. It's just like I go on an entire rant about it along with like this like actual I show you parts of the book that really piss me off in it, and it's I think it's interesting. I think you'll really understand what I mean by it. So you should definitely check out my like reading Tom Hiddleston video, because like it was a good one, and I spent a lot of time on it. Okay, the next book that I read was The High Rise by J.G. Ballard, and this I read as an audiobook because it was narrated by Tom Hiddleston. He's also part of like the movie, and I also read it on my Kindle, and I surprisingly really liked this one. I gave it a 4.5 star. The previous one, by the way, I gave like a 1.5 star. Like I would have given it a 1, but there were parts of it that I liked. But yeah, so 4.5 stars for The High Rise because I was just so pleasantly surprised by it. Maybe it was because, and I've said this before, that maybe the previous book was so shit that I like loved this one in just like comparison. But essentially this book follows like this guy called Dr. Robert Lang, and he is living in this new high-rise, like 40-storied building, where essentially things go to shit. And I have described this as like an adult's version of The Lord of the Flies, and it's just really crazy. I just love the way though that like you take the idea of this building and the sort of world and society that it is, and like compare that to like direct society and how that would be if like chaos were to ensue, and like it's just really like fucked up, and there's a lot of murder and like really weird stuff happening, and like you sort of see the descent of man in general, but I really liked it. I thought that it was a really interesting read. So yeah, you can see more thoughts of that in that video. So there you have it. And then for some reason I decided to like ditch the vlog and instead read the entire Percy Jackson series.
Me at that time.
I can't take this anymore. I am in crisis. I am in pain.
I know, I don't know what get into me, but essentially I think I was just looking for like sweet comfort reads that gave me like sort of happiness instead of like the shit that was The Night Manager. So yeah, that's what I gravitated towards, and essentially why I did so was because my friends Sonali, Shruti and Meera, who are also booktubers, I will link their channels down below. They have this book club called Book Unbound, and they were reading the Percy Jackson series, and they were going to discuss it in a few days, and I had always been wanting to read the Percy Jackson series. I had it with me and I thought that I would vlog it and like talk to you about my feelings and all of that sort of stuff, but that never happened because I was just in a rush to read them in order to get to the live show that they had to discuss the books. And yeah, so I read these 5 books in like 5 days or 4 days or something like that. But they were so good. Like they are essentially like middle grade and like young adult. I would say like the last one is probably young adult, but these 4 felt very middle grade to me. And it follows Percy Jackson, who is a demigod. He is the son of Poseidon and of his mortal mum. And they live in the US. And essentially what's happened is that in this world, the Greek myths and the Greek gods have also moved to the West. So as Western civilization kind of moved to like the US, etc., and like moved westward. Like, you get what I mean, right? The gods also moved there, so they are like now headquartered in like the Empire State Building and stuff like that. It's cool, it's fun stuff. But yeah, there are these demigods, and the demigods are the sons of like these other gods and mortal. And these demigods attract a lot of monsters to them. So they are then sent to this place called Camp Half-Blood, which is a safe place, but also a place where they can train, and they can stay there for the summer or stay there for a longer period of time, whatever. But yeah, that's essentially what it is. And it is just so cute and adorable. So in the first book, we follow Percy Jackson as he sort of discovers that he is a demigod, and how he gets to Camp Half-Blood and meets like all these various different characters and starts making friends and stuff like that. And then he is sent on a quest. So essentially, like, there are these prophecies, and there's this oracle who gives all these prophecies. So she gives him a quest to go to solve, I don't know. And he takes a couple of people with him to do that, and it's really cute because he's basically a 13-year-old boy, and he talks like a 13-year-old. Like, it's very, very adorable, the way that this book was written and how it was so clearly for kids, but like as an adult you can really, really enjoy it as well. But I can see how, like, as a child I would have like just eaten this shit up. Like, holy shit, so good. But like, just to give you an example, this is what's written in the back. Okay, it says, I was just a normal kid going to school, playing basketball, skateboarding, the usual, until I accidentally vaporized my maths teacher. Now I spend my time battling monsters and generally trying to stay alive. I mean, come on. So yeah, this one I really, really enjoyed. I really loved the intro and just everything about it, so I gave it a 4-star. The next book is this one, which is Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters, and I have the most disgusting cover on the face of the earth. Like, I hate this one so much. I've heard that the movie is just absolutely terrible, so I hate it even more. So now that I've fallen in love with this series, I feel like I am going to have to discard this and get like an actually good one. But like, these are all second-hand books that I bought from Blossoms. Like, this one was for 150 rupees, which is amazing. But in this, we are introduced to a new character called Tyson, who I absolutely loved. He was so cute and adorable. He's essentially like the Cyclops character, and I don't want to tell you about like who he is really and all of that sort of stuff because spoilers, but I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really cute. But I didn't enjoy this one as much as the other one. So I think honestly, like, if I have to really think about it, I feel like this was the weakest of the 5 in my opinion. But yeah, it was still enjoyable and I really liked it. So I sped through it super fast. And I think I gave this a 3.5 stars. And then the third one is this one, which is such a better like cover, right? And this is essentially similar stuff. He has gotten a quest and he is following it. But I really like this one because I felt like the characters were really like more developed in this. And we got to see various different people. We got to interact with the gods a lot more. And I just thought it was really interesting. Like, I felt like this was like a turning point in like the series, and I really, really liked it. I thought it was super fast paced and just like I really wanted to know what was gonna happen next, and I gave this one a 4.5 stars. And then the fourth book is this one, which is The Battle of the Labyrinth, and it is again another one where they go on another quest to get something done. But again, I really like this one because I felt like there were again like a lot of character development that was happening, and also you could see that it was going towards the finale, so there was like something like a culmination that was almost gonna take place. So yeah, so I was like, as soon as I finished this one, I was like, I need to get the last book. So yeah, so I gave this one a 4-star, but this one was like an almost 5-star. Like, I love this book so much, but I can't like really, I don't know. I really love this one. Like, this was the end of the Percy Jackson series. There's of course like other series where we see Percy Jackson and all of these other characters, but this was the end to that series. The next one is called Heroes of Olympus. But yeah, this one I really, really enjoyed. I just thought that it was a really satisfying ending. I just really like the way that Rick Riordan writes his characters and just how you can see that character arc. I also really liked just the different gods coming together and having that and seeing what he would think that a Greek god would look like now. And I just just really enjoyed the friendship and everything, and it made me feel really happy. So that was me reading the 5 books which are the Percy Jackson series. But yeah. And then I decided that it was time to get back to my Tom Hiddleston video. So I read this book, which is Life of Pi by Yann Martel, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5 star. And again, you can see all my thoughts in my video. I won't go too deep into it, but I really enjoyed this one. Essentially, we are following Pi, who is this boy from Pondicherry. His father was a zookeeper, and they decide to move to Canada. So they go by ship because some of the animals needed to be transported as well, but the ship sinks, and Pi survives by getting onto this lifeboat. But on this lifeboat with him are a couple of animals as well as this tiger, and he has to survive on the ship for more than, on this like boat for more than 120 days, just being on in the water and trying to survive. And it's about survival, but it's also about like hope and people, and I don't know, but it was really so good. I thought that it was a really experimental style of writing, but I also had to give such huge kudos to Yann Martel for fully nailing the Indian voice, because he's a Canadian Portuguese dude, and he like fully nailed like the cadence and the way that like we speak and all of that sort of stuff. I found it extremely believable that this narrator was Indian and it was a Canadian like Portuguese guy writing it. So yeah, you can see more of my thoughts in that video. But then moving on, did I read the next book I was supposed to read for my Tom Hiddleston video? No, I did not. Instead, I read a graphic novel, which is the 5th volume of the Saga series, which is a series that I absolutely loved. I had just gotten it in my mail and I was like, yep, I need to read this ASAP. So yeah, that's what I did. But essentially the Saga series is about Marco and Alana, who are from 2 different worlds. It is not the world that we live in. It's a fantastical world, and both these worlds are warring. So they are from enemy like worlds, but they fall in love and they have a child, and we are essentially following them as they try to escape from their governments, because the governments want to kill them, and then they also send a lot of other people to kill them, and it's like a little gory and a little weird and a little like intense, but like it is so good, and I loved this one. I think I gave this a 4.5 star. Did I? Yes, I gave it a 4.5 star, and I just really liked it, and I can't really say anything more because spoilers, but I love the Saga series. I think that it is written really well, illustrated really well, and it is very expensive, but I will read it forever. So you would think that after reading this graphic novel, Smithy would definitely get back to her Tom Hiddleston video and read the book that she was actually supposed to read, but no. Instead, I decided to read a horror book called My Best Friend's Exorcism. And was this very horror? Not really. It was very light on the horror, but essentially we are following these teenage girls in the 80s, where one of them is supposedly possessed by like the devil or like a demonic thing and stuff like that, and how the other best friend is just basically trying to help her with this process and get her exorcised. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know, this book was interesting. I like that it was set in the 80s and it had all these references to like 80s songs and 80s things that were happening. I also felt like the friendship was written really well, and I felt like the girls were written really well, which is a bit strange to me because it was written by a dude, and usually I feel like dudes don't do so well in terms of understanding female friendships and just female characters in general, but I feel like this one was done well. Funnily enough, I felt like the exorcism aspect of this was like the one that I didn't like at all. Like that was the part which I didn't like, but the rest of it was alright. It was a solid read, and I definitely read this because of the cover, because like the cover is just so nice and so vintage and so cool. But yeah, that was that. At this point of time, you would be like, of course, Smithy, after reading this book, you would definitely read the book that you were supposed to read, right? And nope, I think that after reading the horror book, I wanted to read like a light, fluffy read. So I chose this short novella called "Not You Again" by Terri Osburn. And this one is essentially about this girl who is in her 30s, and she is being set up on these blind dates by her best friends. And she decides to do them like in a row, so like 4 blind dates in 5 days. Um, because I don't know, essentially they want her to like get out there again and stuff like that. And you see that as she goes on these dates, she keeps meeting this one guy again and again during that time, and they get into like various situations. And I thought that it was really cute and sweet, and you kind of see where it's going to go. Like, it's very predictable in that sort of way, but I thought that it was still nice, and I liked the characters and the people that they were and stuff like that. And also, like, I thought it was going to be light and fluffy, but it started talking about some really intense things and topics such as grief, and I'm just like, yo, what? I thought this was supposed to be light and fluffy, but it wasn't. But I still enjoyed it, and I gave it a 3.5 stars. And then I finally did get to the book that I was supposed to be reading, which is this one, Any Human Art by William Boyd, and this is supposed to be Tom Hiddleston's favorite book as of 2011. But I really enjoyed this one. I gave this a 4.5 star. This is essentially, we're following these journals. Okay, so essentially this entire book is journals of this fictional author called Logan Monstewart, and we follow his life essentially. So from him in school to him in college and growing up and becoming an author and like all of that sort of stuff, and what all he goes through, and it's just really interesting. And Logan Monstewart has gone through a lot. So for example, like the war, Second World War, and just a lot of other things that like sort of took place. And I thought that it was really well written, and initially I was a little annoyed by him because like as a character I was really like, you know, he was like one of those cocky teenagers, and then slowly though you see him develop as a person and become the person that he is, and towards the end I just got like super emotional about it. And yeah, I just really liked reading this one, and you can see more thoughts of mine in that blog. But yeah, it was really good. I would recommend, and I gave this a 4.5 star. The next book that I read was a book called Good Morning, Good Night by Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I don't know if I can call this a book because it's essentially just like these little affirmations that were written. Essentially, Lin-Manuel, who, as I'm hoping you would know, is just an absolutely amazing person. He is a writer, a performer, the guy who wrote Hamilton and performed Hamilton, you know, like the play, the huge box office success that he is. So back in the day, he used to write these tweets where he would say good morning, and then he would give you like some affirmation, and then in the end of the day he would say good night and then give you something to say. So for example, he would say, good morning, in your corner, even in the roundest of rooms, on your side, even if it makes this seesaw kind of boring. And then he would say, good night, holding your hand, even if it's sticky from jelly or honey, on your team, even when you're playing solitaire. And that's the book. Like, it has these various affirmations and these things that he's saying, and it was just so cute and lovely, and I thought that it was just a very nice, cute read, and I read this as well as listened to him narrate it, and it was just like a hug. So I gave this a 4.5 star. The next 2 books I can combine because I read volume 1 and volume 2 of Fence by C.S. Pacat, and this is a really cute graphic novel series that I started reading one night because I wasn't getting any sleep, and I just read it on script, like on my phone. But it was super fun. Essentially, we are following this guy called Nicholas Cox, who is like the illegitimate child of like a fencing champion. So he decides that he wants to also learn fencing, and he is weirdly really good at it. But so then he gets accepted into this like elite boarding school sort of situation, and it's about him fitting in and fencing and all the competition, but also about his rival, who's also his roommate, Sheiji Kamayata or something like that. I don't remember, but I thought that this was a really cute read. It's so queer, but so lovely, and I really enjoyed it. We got to see various people and their life stories, but also of them growing up and trying to become the men that they're supposed to be and stuff like that. I don't know, I just thought that it was really lovely and fun to read, and I sped through it super fast, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm definitely hoping to read volume 3 and volume 4 soon as well. And then the last book that I read for this month was The Roommate by Rosie Danan, and oh my god, this book was something. Essentially, we are following this girl called Clara who has just gotten her PhD in art history, but she decides to move from the East Coast to the West Coast to be with her best friend, like her childhood best friend, who she has secretly always loved. But he is a musician, and he, as soon as she lands, literally, like they're still in the car, he tells her that, like, sorry, I have to bounce though, so we're not actually going to be living together because for the next few months I'm going to be on tour. So instead, I have rented out my room to another rando, and you're going to stay with him instead. So that was a fun thing. So I was like, okay, like, why? But also turns out that this roommate or this housemate is a porn star. Like, he's like this really famous porn star, and Clara is like this super uptight girl from, like, oh, who's never done anything really wrong in her life and blah blah blah. And she is tiny but has big boobs and a butt, so that's great. And essentially, he kind of like teaches her how to have sex or like pleasure. I don't know, it gets into this whole thing. And I have to say that the upside of this was that there were like some amazing sexy scenes, okay, like some really hot shit, right? But on the downside was the plot and just everything else. Like, the end, I would have given this maybe like a 2-star, but the end just got me so mad because it was so cheesy and so yucky, and just like none of it sort of made sense to me. I just, yeah, I didn't like this one at all. And yeah, that's the end of all the 16 books that I read in June. Holy shit. Yeah. Alright, quickly, let us talk about the books that I plan to read in July. And there are 2 books that came with me into, like, from June into July, because, like, I was reading them in June and I couldn't finish them. And the first one is this one, which is Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Laurie Gottlieb. This is a memoir about her being a therapist, and her clients, as well as, like, her getting therapy herself. And it's really nice and really interesting so far, so I'm really liking it. The second book is this one, which is The Weight of Our Stars by Kay Ankrum, and I've heard a lot about Kay Ankrum and this book in general, so I'm really excited to read it. But essentially, it's about these 2 girls in high school and their friendship, and also about space. And yeah, that's all I can tell you for now, but I'll talk to you more about it in a fun video, hopefully coming out soon. I am doing that thing where I'm like not really filming the video properly. I don't know, you'll see what I mean. The next book is a book from my own book club. I know, it's called the Conciousness Raising book club, and I haven't like formally announced it as yet, but it is essentially a book club where we read books that educate us about certain topics, and it was sort of like inactive in between, but now we've sort of come back to life. And the book that we plan to read is Chup, as I said, and essentially I'm just gonna read what it says. It says, do you pride yourself on being a strong woman? Do you aspire to be one or support one? Or do you consider yourself a feminist? Chances are that you behave in ways that are the exact opposite, as this path-breaking book argues. So essentially, Deepa Narayanan is a social scientist, and she went and did a lot of research and a lot of interviews with women and men across metro cities. And she realized there are these certain behaviors that make women behave in ways that are very anti-feminist. So she says that Indian women are trained to habitually delete themselves, and I just think that it's going to be a really interesting read, and hopefully is going to be something that like educates us and holds a mirror to ourselves, as this blurb says. So if you want to also read this book with us, we will be reading it all through this month, and then maybe discussing it in like the first week of August. So if you want to be part of the discussion, DM me on Instagram or whatever. Right now we have a WhatsApp group, but I'm probably going to be also creating creating like a Discord chat. So yeah, that's basically where we are going with that, and I will keep you abreast of everything that happens. Another book that I plan to read is this one, which is The Best at It by Maulik Pancholi. This is a middle grade book about a boy in the US, a first gen Indian, who is struggling with being himself and also coming out as gay, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So this is going to be a fun one, and it's part of a video that I think is going to be super fun and super interesting. Then I also definitely plan to read The Burning Girls by CJ Tudor, which is the latest release by CJ Tudor. And then I am starting on my Women's Prize shortlist. I've only read one book, which is Piranesi, but I plan to read How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps the Floor by Cherry Jones. So that's gonna also happen this month, and yeah, then I have a bunch of other stuff which I'm not gonna talk to you about right now. But yeah, that's it for this very long ass video. I've been filming for an hour and a half, you guys, so like I don't know how long this video is gonna be. But anyway, I hope that this was fun. I know that it was very long, so if you are here, leave me any beverage or something in the comments. I don't know, or like something. I don't know. Just give me love somehow. I don't know. Energy. Something. I don't know what I'm saying no more.